Hello lovelies, in this video the brilliant Dr. Upwards is going to be looking at cloning for your GCSE biology. So the different ways that we can do cloning and then the advantages and disadvantages and the ethics behind it.
Cloning. Clones are genetically identical organisms. Clones form naturally through asexual reproduction, so ones that we've looked at like binary fission in bacteria, but they can also form when an embryo splits into two in the uterus. This forms identical twins. Humans have used artificial cloning methods for many years to create many identical copies of plants, for example, with desired characteristics, or to clone genetically modified organisms. So let's look at plant cloning. The first type of plant cloning we can look at is tissue culture. First, cells are removed from a plant. This is the plant that you want to clone, and we call these bunches of cells explants. They're placed on a growth medium, so this is sterilised agar jelly. It has to be sterilised because we're introducing cells to a new environment. It could easily get infected or grow bacteria or something else instead if you're not careful. The growth medium contains hormones as well as nutrients, so the cells begin to grow and they start to form roots. Then we split this kind of ball of plant cells with roots into individual little plantlets. These are all genetically identical to each other and from the original plant that the original cells were taken. The positives of doing plant cloning this way is that it can help to preserve rare plant species. So if you only have one or two individuals of a plant species left, you can take a small amount of cells from each one and make many copies. This also helps to grow lots of commercial plants. So if you've got a really beautiful flower or a plant that you want to sell lots of and you want to make more of it very quickly, this is a good way. The disadvantages are that it's expensive and it's difficult. It requires a lab and special techniques and a sterile environment. All of this can't just be done by anyone. The other form of plant cloning is through cuttings. This is quite simple and quite an old style of doing this that's been done for a long time. So in this case, you remove like a whole branch or a small stem from a larger plant. Then you remove the lower leaves and the cut end is dipped into rooting powder, which contains growth hormones. Then you put each of these cuttings into damp compost and the roots begin to grow and a new plant will form. You can also cover them in plastic, like a plastic bag, in order to try and increase and improve the growth. It keeps them warm, it keeps the air around them humid, and it helps to encourage root growth. The positives of doing this is that gardeners can easily produce many identical new plants from one single parent plant, and this is fine for doing it like in your garden at home or for small scale people who are growing a few plants, but you can't use it on a large scale to produce kind of hundreds of plants for sale. That's how you would have to use tissue culture. Let's look at some animal examples. One method of animal cloning involves embryo transplants. This is where an embryo is split into individual cells. So a fertilized embryo starts to divide and produce new cells. Each of them is identical because it's happened through mitosis. So once that starts to happen, we can take individual cells and then transplant them each into a different host animal. In this example, we would get 4 identical piglets, but they would be born from 4 different pigs. So this is a way of producing identical organisms, clones of each other, but using different host mothers. So they can be born all at the same time. The next type is adult cell cloning. This will use 3 separate individuals. So I have cow A, cow B, and cow C. So I remove a body cell from cow A. This is the animal I want to clone, and I remove the nucleus from this body cell. Cow B, I take an egg cell out, and I remove the nucleus from that egg cell. It's called enucleation, or an enucleated egg cell. Then I'm going to take my nucleus from my body cell, and I'm going to fuse it into the enucleated egg cell. We do this by stimulating it with electricity called electroporation. And then it stimulates to divide as well. So that electric shock helps to fuse the two together and also stimulate it to start dividing into an embryo. Then once the embryo has started to divide, so we know that it's healthy and it's going to continue growing, you're going to place that into the surrogate mother, which is cow C. And then this should proceed like a normal pregnancy in order for the animal to be born. So the calf born from mother C will be a clone that is genetically identical to the animal A, because we took the nucleus with its DNA in and put it into the egg cell. So the DNA from cow A will be in the nucleus of every single cell in the organism that's born from cow C. Again, both of these types of cloning are illegal in humans. Okay, so just like with genetic modification, cloning, especially animal cloning, is not allowed in humans. So let's discuss the advantages and disadvantages of cloning. Cloning could help to preserve rare or endangered species of both animals and plants. It is a quick and cheap way to produce large numbers of plants with desired characteristics, and it can be done at any time of year. It allows farmers to produce high quality animals with desired characteristics. So they're not having to go through the process of selective breeding, and they're not having to run the risk of having variation and differences in their livestock year to year. They know what they're going to get. What are the disadvantages of cloning? Cloned animals may not be as healthy as those produced naturally. Cloning produces large numbers of identical organisms, so the genetic variation is reduced. So then we have the same issues that we have with inbreeding, with selective breeding as well. So they could be less resistant to new diseases, and that could be a problem because they could be wiped out by a new pathogen. There are also ethical issues around the use of this technology, and the fact that it exists and that we can do it means that there's potential that people could want to try and clone humans in the future. Any human manipulation or experimentation, including genetic modification, is currently illegal, but people are worried and concerned that this technology could fall into the wrong hands.
Ouch! This is why in some videos I explain scratches.